Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. I get to play the breaking news sound effect out of the gate, a key Viking not showing up to voluntary workouts.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and I too will refuse to work out today.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan with Pro Football Network. I'm streaming from a broken computer, so I cannot see my colleagues' faces, and honestly, I prefer that.
All that and plenty more on today's Minnesota football party. Let's get into it.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota football party. And it starts now.
Welcome in. Happy Monday. It's the Minnesota football party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm the host, Sam Ekstrom, covering the Vikings here for Locked On Sports Minnesota, I guess. That was super awkward. Let me start over. Welcome in. Happy Monday. I'm Sam Ekstrom, the host of the Minnesota football party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Find me on Twitter, at Sam Ekstrom. Joined as usual on a Monday by Arif Hasan, Pro Football Network, at Arif Hasan NFL on Twitter. Go get in his mentions. Also Luke Braun, at Luke Braun NFL, Locked On Vikings host. He joins us every Monday and Thursday as well. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started. Plenty to discuss on this Monday. We've got some breaking news out of the gate that we will get to momentarily. I want your unpopular Vikings takes. And for Luke Braun, that might be all of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But
I'm kidding. Too. Yeah.
I'm kidding. I love Luke Braun's takes. Also, a little draft edition of Would You Rather that I'm going to make up on the spot, and we will spend $500 mythical dollars on FanDuel draft props. This is a draft-heavy show.
Okay.
We're also available in many different ways. Locked On Sports Minnesota is free on YouTube. We're free and available wherever you find your podcasts. And we are also on Amazon, Fire Stick, and Roku devices. But we begin today with a little bit of this. I got to find the Jeremy Fowler tweet because my timeline has been overtaken by Jalen Hurts extension tweets. Jalen Hurts, now the most highly paid player in NFL history. Congrats to him. But Jeremy Fowler earlier, 56 minutes ago, tweeted, Vikings DE Danielle Hunter is not expected to attend the start of Minnesota's voluntary offseason program. Per sources, the absence is likely due to his contract. He's set to make $4.9 million in the last year of his deal, well below market for a three-time Pro Bowler. Then he adds, the Vikings value Hunter, who recorded 10.5 sacks last year, despite scheme changes. So it's possible something could be worked out on the contract front. So he's not exactly saying the Vikings and Hunter are working hard to resolve this contract issue. And I think people do need to realize, too, that Hunter is playing for peanuts, that the cap hit is not the salary in this case. The cap hit, I think, is 15. I think it's 15. But he's making 4.9. So clearly well below what a player, pass rusher of his caliber is worth. And I think we're all very confused. We're all very confused as to what Danielle Hunter's future is. He's been in this spot now 3 consecutive off seasons without much resolution. Injuries have contributed to that. Captain Obvious by Fowler to say that despite scheme changes, the Vikings value him. You value Danielle Hunter in any scheme. But Arif Hasan, I think that this is not a surprise that Danielle Hunter is skipping voluntary workouts. But what's going to happen with this? The Vikings going to get this thing done?
Yeah, I think the Vikings will get it done. I find it interesting that Fowler in his tweet referenced him as a DE. Technically, I believe he's still on the roster as an outside linebacker. Probably doesn't matter. But I just thought that was kind of funny.
Whoever drafted that tweet has to answer.
Right, yeah. I will say, though, it is an interesting question because his cash flow last year was $20 million, right? The nature of the restructure that made it such that he'd only receive $5.5 million this year was a product of him receiving $20 million last year. So I don't think it tells the full story to say that, he's making a paltry salary this year relative to his talent. Obviously, I'd take $5.5 million. But I will say that is an important part of the story. That said, over the course of this contract, his cash flow has generally been a little bit less than what you'd expect for his production, which you could expect when that deal was first announced several years ago. So in either instance, I'm comfortable with him, getting more money, but especially in this instance where even though he got a lot of cash last year, he doesn't have a lot of security going forward, and he doesn't have a lot of cash in his name going forward. Plus, I mean, he just wants an extension, right? Like, I think that he's going to be a free agent next year. So all of those make a ton of sense. An extension would allow the Vikings to reduce the cap hit this year of $13 million, even though, again, he is only making $5 million. But not a ton, because there were several restructures that put him into this cap situation and cash situation. So you probably only be able to free up maybe about $4 million in cap space. But for the Vikings, that seems like a lot. You'd be able to push it into the next couple of years. Hunter, as famously, is still young. And I think that he's probably poised for a pretty big year after the past 3 years have been somewhat disappointing on a total number basis, but not on a per snap basis.
And they've also got 11 million dead next year wrapped up in void years. So if you're keeping track, that's 40 million dead between Kirk and Danielle, who are currently extensionless. Luke, Braun, your
you
thoughts?
Can resolve that dead with an extension.
You can.
Yep, this is a pretty easy problem to solve. I think you just have to get Danielle Hunter to agree to something. And I think the goal for me, what I would look for in this contract is let's get Danielle Hunter to agree to something that won't be a problem every year. Because we've been in this for 2-3 years in a row now of, Danielle Hunter's contract, of him having an issue with his contract and having a very justified issue with that contract. Let's just sign this dude to a real deal. He has earned it about 4 times over by now. But they've kind of had, let's just do a little restructure, a little roster bonus thing, a little, maybe provisional deal and all of that. The back injury from 2 years ago is kind of well in the past. And while there's always a chance that it re-aggravates, that chance is stable. It is what it is. So I don't know. Danielle Hunter's good. Let's keep him in the building for as long as we can. I think there's a lot of people that are going to look at a move like this and be really, really mad that he's not being a team player. He's not going to the voluntary. Hey, it is voluntary and it has to be voluntary. That is
right. Yeah.
The mandated thing that is voluntary. He can miss it because he wants to go to the Poconos. Like, he can do whatever he wants. And I want people to understand that this is one of the only negotiating leverage moves that a player has. He's trying to maximize his money and doing what is at his disposal to do that. Not only is that okay, I think more players should do it and be able to maximize what they get. That's fine. But yeah, I think this can work out pretty easily if all sides are motivated to do so.
Let's also clarify what off-season workouts is. This isn't even light scrimmaging with shells. This is stretching. This is team bonding,
this
stretching
is
time.
Weight. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get in the weight room together and hang out, and we'll just start getting you in shape. That's all this is. That's all he's missing. I think Danielle Hunter's probably in pretty good shape, knows how to take care of his body. The Vikings have had extremely good participation in these voluntary sessions over the years. Fans probably got pretty used to that, but it's much ado about nothing to get upset over Danielle missing it. And even if he misses OTAs, provided that he's still on the roster, there's no big move involving him, I still don't think that would be a big deal either if he doesn't have a contract. So defensive end average salaries: Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Leonard Williams, Von Miller. Those are the 4 DEs that would eclipse 20 million. And I know it gets a little muddled because, like you mentioned, outside linebacker is kind of the de facto position. But are we looking at 20 million on average? And if you go outside linebacker, by the way, TJ Watt, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Bradley Chubb. So you've got 8 guys total at the DE, OLB position that are making 20 million or more. And I presume that Danielle would want that at minimum 20 million. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, especially in this cap environment. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
And
not a lot of discussion there. Yep.
And
Thanks
we
for doing the
think-
research, Sam.
I'm so bad at guessing contracts. Yep, sounds fine.
No,
Whatever.
I mean, I'll say like 20 million sounded at the high end of reasonable 2 years ago. There's no way in my head that 20 million doesn't make sense right now with this cap environment. The cap has gone up like 7% every year. So yeah.
The test here, I think, is the term, because as we've seen with Kwesi, he kind of lays it down at 3 years, right? And Justin Jefferson would be the exception where you're not going to pull anything over on him. He's going to get the conversation with Jefferson is going to be, okay, we want 6. No, we're going to give you 5. Like, that's probably the extent to which you have wiggle room with him. With Danielle, I could see Kwesi and the Vikings pushing for 3 for 60. 3 years, 20 million a year, 60 million. Danielle wanting more. I think this, and considering he's 28 with his injury history, that's probably a decent test of how like heavy-handed Kwesi and company will be at the negotiating table.
Yeah, no, I think that contract length is gonna matter a lot. One thing that we should talk about is also that there is just generally a push for shorter contracts, not just in the Kwesi era. I think we've all noticed that there are shorter contracts with what Adofo-Mensah has been doing. But generally speaking, in the NFL, there has now been a little bit of a trend towards that, because the only way void years work is if the contract's under 5 years. And if everybody wants to do void years, that means they have to do extensions or contracts that are under 5 years, because otherwise you cannot spread the signing bonus out over the course of those additional voided years. So if the Vikings want to save cap space by voiding the years, and I think it was the last time I was on the show, we talked about how you're basically borrowing at a negative interest rate when you use void years and dead money. If you want to do that, if you want to take advantage of that, that means shorter deals. But the upside to that is that players are no longer being, hoodwinked is maybe too strong a word, but players no longer have the fake assurance of the final 2 years of a deal that won't actualize. So certainly I think Hunter wants to push for more in order to get that security. But I think that ultimately the Vikings will probably be able to get a short-term extension done.
Yeah. And I want to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to clarify with void years, because void years can get people's heads spinning. The reason it has to be a shorter deal is because when you do the like signing bonus restructure thing, it prorates over a maximum of 5 years. You can't have a proration over 6 or 7 years. It tops out at 5. So you can't have a 5-year deal with void years. You won't prorate into those void years. You have to do like a 3-year deal with 2 void years so you can spread that out. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
Crystal clear. Luke Braun. Unpopular draft takes after I tell you that we're brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, a Locked On Podcast Network partner, FanDuel.com/Locked On, to claim your no sweat first bet. If you're a new customer, get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/Locked On. Timberwolves were 8.5-point underdogs last night, and they got shellacked. They did not cover whatsoever. But there were 2 underdogs in the Western Conference playoffs that did cover. Clippers and Lakers both covered. So pretty eventful NBA playoff opening weekend. Make sure you get in the action on the NHL playoffs as well, starting tonight at FanDuel.com/Locked On. Make every moment more with FanDuel. They're an official sports betting partner of the NBA. The draft, we need Luke Inman for the countdown, but I think I can do the math in my head. It is 10 days. 10 days until the NFL draft. I want your unpopular draft takes. I mean, for Luke, it's Hendon Hooker, right? And that's kind of my camp as well. But and when I mean Luke, I mean Inman. I want your guys' unpopular draft takes.
No, I'm actually having difficulty with these takes too, especially because like I think that a lot of the takes that I had, which were half formed and not well informed, were lucky luckily enough, turned out to be the kind of the draft consensus, like disregarding the safety classes. Anything interesting if you're looking for a traditional safety of any sort, that ended up being kind of the consensus there. I think that, we had our debate on Clark Phillips. So, I think we all kind of know that my take there is a little bit less popular than some others. This one is really tough. I think if we take a look at like wide receivers and stuff like that, I think that Vikings fans, generally speaking, are overrating the wide receiver class. I'm not saying they shouldn't take a wide receiver one, or in the first round rather, but rather that, if you're going to grab a receiver for an offense that's going to be in two receiver a lot more often, that receiver is going to have to be effective in the run game, right? And so it's really tough to ask a Jalen Hyatt or Xavier Hutchinson or even a Zay Flowers, who I like, to be effective, right, in that capacity. Even Jordan Addison, who is the height. I don't think he has the size, though. Jordan Addison is the height. I don't think he has the size. Quentin Johnston was not very involved in the run game, if I remember, from what I'm watching, even though he has the size. And you take a look at, like, maybe Cedric Tillman from Tennessee has kind of those qualities that you're looking for. So it's really difficult to find a receiver that's going to fit the Vikings offense. So I think while I, in theory, really like the idea of taking that receiver, I think that that's a good strategic move in a general sense. It would not shock me if the Vikings passed on a number of receivers in the first couple of rounds of this draft, assuming they have like a second round pick or whatever, right? The first couple of rounds of this draft, and taking somebody that we're a lot less excited by, that we don't think has the ability to compete for a wide receiver 2 job with KJ Osborne, who, assures us that he's a quality receiver, and I believe him. I think that a lot
of people came to his defense too.
Yeah, rightly so. He's a good player.
Adam Thielen. Yeah.
I didn't see Adam Thielen. That's great. That's fantastic.
Adam Thielen came. Yeah. Adam Thielen jumped on it.
He chimed in.
All the way from Carolina. That's a
the Vikings Twitter account.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just
Unity.
I don't.
It's a good locker room.
I think it's very likely that a lot of these receivers don't fit what the Vikings are looking for. I'd love to be wrong. I'm really curious about kind of how the offense is going to evolve with any of these guys, but that might be a hot take. I don't know. I like Kelee Ringo more than all of these dudes do. Like everybody that we've brought onto the show, that Luke and Luke have talked about Kelee Ringo, how they don't like them. I've talked to, on my podcast with Thor Nystrom and Corey Kinnan, and nobody likes Kelee Ringo, but they all rank him. The consensus rank is still a first rounder. I'm going to trust the numbers on that one, the wisdom of the crowds. I think he's a good player. So maybe that's another hot take, even though saying a first rounder is good at the position he plays shouldn't feel like a first. It's just like everybody is down on Hendon Hooker, yet he keeps on getting mocked to the Vikings. Everyone is down on Kelee Ringo, but he keeps on getting mocked in the first round. I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, I think that there is pretty good cornerback depth. And when you start talking about like cornerback 7, I think someone like Kelee Ringo just kind of falls through the cracks. Like people don't necessarily dig as far into someone who's a little further down the board. They want to talk about Joey Porter Jr. and Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, but like Cam Smith, like that's another guy. I love Cam Smith.
Cam Smith is good. He's so
maybe
good.
Yeah, he's like what, the 6th or 7th cornerback in this draft, which is crazy. Let me springboard off of that. This is my unpopular draft take. I don't think it's criminal if the Vikings fail to address cornerback on the first 2 days of the draft. I don't. I think that when you have
who is your starting 3? Is it Booth, Evans, Murphy?
The equation is not complete. That my take is that
is it like free agents after the draft? Because they need 5 players just to have a good camp roster.
Yeah,
like just to have enough dudes.
You are not done adding. You're not done adding cornerback.
You mean they need to add 5 players, right? They currently don't even have up to 5, I think. So
I believe they have exactly 5 players under contract at the cornerback position,
and 3 and 2 of them are throwaways, right? Like 2 of them are
2
like
of them are futures contract. But don't tell Tay Gowan that, who also got in on the KJ Osborne.
Beautiful. That okay.
Cornerback
was he
mentality.
defending KJ Osborne, or was he defending himself?
The bulletin board,
love confidence. Cornerbacks need confidence.
We all know the original instigator of this. He has created the bulletin board material for this team that will, in the end, prove him wrong.
Do we have to credit him with like an additional? Does he get to earn like half a win this season?
There's a lot of bulletin board material about people out there, especially people who are like really, really high on Kirk Cousins, basically saying that the Vikings roster is terrible and that's why,
right. But
and
all
Kirk
the
Cousins is like the
players
only
noticed,
reason, blah, blah,
all the
blah.
players noticed one guy, right? So
Yeah.
he's on
Because
the
KJ
bulletin
Osborne
board.
got in.
Yeah.
Right.
Drew their
So-
attention.
So would we say that by motivating the team to become, because this is my argument when Wentz was doing well, I was such a good hater that I was able to create an MVP season for Wentz. Just such
Then
an
I guess you
elite
have to,
hater.
yeah.
Right. And so like to be consistent, which we all know I strive to be, we'd have to give this guy like credit for at least half a win this season if they're doing pretty well.
I'm not a believer in QB wins, but blogger wins, definitely.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. If we start tracking blogger wins,
wins.
I think like, you know how like well, I shouldn't say the NFL because the NFL still doesn't do that, but Pro Football Reference took all of the historical sack data from before 1982 when the NFL was counting sacks. They went back, or they took John Turney, who went back and counted sacks all the way back to 1960. We need to go back and count blogger wins so I can know my record since 2012.
I think you were a pretty big motivator for that 2015 team, Arif.
Oh, 100%.
That was the year that Zimmer, every single week, Zimmer would like walk up to the podium on a Wednesday and rattle off all the reasons that the team allegedly wasn't going to win. He was playing that card so hard. And
Also,
I'm sure you were behind a lot of it.
Well, okay, so was it against Carolina that Chad Greenway got a pick six on his birthday or something like that? That's me.
Chargers. Game,
okay, yeah. That's me.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
100% me.
Yep. Didn't Greenway go at you?
At is pretty strong, but he did tag me on Twitter after the game. He was like, "How's that?
Awesome.
Was that pick six bad at football?" I was like, "Guess not, bud. Guess it wasn't."
That is fantastic. Man, we got off on that. So I was talking about cornerbacks.
Right? Yeah.
You
You were slandering Tay Gowan. Continue.
All right. So Tay Gowan slander Kalon Barnes, the fastest guy ever at the combine. He's on the team too.
Yeah, like a 4.22 or something like that.
And then
I don't know
Evans, Booth, Murphy. That's the whole room. There are no other people
Evans,
with
Booth,
a pulse.
Murphy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's not saying you're saying it's not criminal if they don't address cornerback in the first 2 days.
I'm saying it's not criminal because number one, you cannot assume that your rookies are going to help you in year one. And I think Kwesi believes that. Kwesi does not draft to help you in the first year. I don't know, maybe the first round.
Well,
maybe
who was Ed Ingram then?
Yeah, Ed Ingram did. It doesn't mean they can't, but it doesn't mean it's not part of your plan, not part of your team building.
Okay, yeah, they did sign
because they had Jesse Davis, and that was like,
and Chris Reed. Like they had plenty of insurance.
I don't know that Chris Reed was a genuine, but fair enough. Yeah.
Well, he was hurt.
I think they expected Jesse Davis to start because they guaranteed him a bunch of money, and then
they gave him void years.
They adjusted. Yeah. Like they definitely did not think Jesse Davis wouldn't make the team.
Yeah,
like
they were able to get trade guys for him, so yeah.
Rock Ya-Sin, Troy Hill, you can still go and find an outside corner. You can find a slot, and maybe they're waiting for Dalvin trade money to clear things up, or a restructure of Hawkinson extension. I think that the Vikings are sitting on moves.
I know, Sam, that you have a very it's a very detailed schedule. We've got we talk about the Dalvin trade thing for just 1 second. I didn't catch the Zach Hiller podcast appearance. I only saw the clip on Twitter, and then I saw a quote of that clip, but the quote extended beyond what the clip was, and I didn't go to find that podcast. But the indication from Vikings Twitter before, we got distracted by KJ Osborne, was that the way Zach Hiller was talking about Dalvin Cook was as if he was really confident that Dalvin Cook would no longer be in Minnesota. And he said something like, well, I can't talk about that yet, in relation to a question about Dalvin Cook or something like that. So, do you think that that's meaningful? Also, noteworthy, the clip that was tweeted out spelled Zach's name wrong. So, obviously, it's very trustworthy.
So I just saw the clips on Twitter like you. Didn't hear the whole thing. So I will say this. I'm not sure that Zach Hiller is the most credible spokesman of all agents in the NFL. I'm not sure that Zach
would you take
Killer's the one.
Dogra or Stiller? And I don't mean in a fight, because that's obviously Dogra. But if it's like which running back agent? Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I would love to see a Dogra Stiller debate.
That is so funny you bring that up. I hadn't thought of it, but yeah, the last two Vikings running backs have been represented by the most interesting human being.
I was going to use the word mercurial. Right?
Enigmatic.
Mercurial.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like Zach Killer can't resist. Like, he can't help himself but to leave these breadcrumbs. Like, a different agent would probably, like Kwesi, for instance, when asked, was very... He said everything, but without saying anything, in a very GM kind of polished way.
Which he's had to learn, by the way, right? Like, that's not a skill he came to the Vikings with.
He put his foot in his mouth like 3 different times right away.
I know.
Yeah. It ruled.
Solutions oriented. Like, he may as well have telegraphed, we're looking for a trade partner. But Dalvin's agent, I don't think, has that polish. I think he couldn't resist wanting to tell the truth, and that just oozed out through the subtext of his quotes. So I think that it is meaningful that he's talking like that. Yes. I don't see the purpose of a smokescreen. Braun, do you agree with that?
He is definitely, because he does this with his other clients too. With who's the running back in Baltimore? Dobbins?
Yeah, Dobbins.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins. He also represents Zay Flowers, by the way. And he will... The
That's
tone
how you know Zay
is
Flowers
always
is a
very
dog.
similar. Yeah, like the tone is always similar. That my client is so good, he'd be the best in the league if this team just didn't misuse him so much. That's always the narrative, and that's a narrative he's pushing on purpose because he's trying to like hype up his client. Like, sure, but you got to understand the perspective.
Yeah,
when he says, like, he's been saying bad stuff about the Minnesota Vikings, like, since the Vikings drafted Dalvin Cook. This is not new.
Zach Hiller's take is legitimately, at least on his Twitter, I don't know if he believes this in his heart, but I kind of think he does, that Justin Jefferson is bad for the team, and that the Vikings passing to him is bad for the team, and that Dalvin Cook is the real reason, or the real engine.
There is a version of
and he'll go to any length. Like, it does not have to make sense.
Right. Yeah. He's taken it to it, but there's a version of that Kevin O'Connell basically subscribed to this offseason when he was talking about the running game. I'm just going to put that out there, right? That, like, there, in a sense, Kevin O'Connell said something, if you squint the silhouette's pretty similar.
He said, Zach, you're absolutely right. We are going to double down on the run game, just not with your client.
It's like if you run like a sentence through like 3 different language translators and then run it back in English. That's the version we got back.
Like, through a coach and then an agent and then a blogger. And then what do they say on a podcast about it?
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blogger wins.
Yeah.
Should I text Zach right now?
Do it.
The like watered down version of it is that, hey, we kind of, our whole offense sort of ran too much through one person, and we would prefer more like diversity, which is way easier to defend than like Dalvin Cook's a better player, therefore the offense should run through him. But yeah, sure. Right. You're on the same railroad track. One is just a lot further down it.
I don't totally understand the secrecy element. Like, if there is some kind of covert deal, I guess I don't know why it's not more in the open, or why they are.
It could be conditional based off of like a pick, right? Like, if Bijan is gone, so if it's like Bijan, Shane, and Jahmyr Gibbs are gone by the time X team picks in round 2. Right, then that team is willing to pull the trigger and trade for Dalvin Cook or something along those lines, right? And so if it leaks, or you announce like, hey, we've got kind of an agreement with, I don't know, the Bengals for a Mixon Cook swap, that actually sounds like a terrible idea. But if like, or I just picked a team at random.
Let's solve no one's problems.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The Cardinals, how about that? They always need a running back, right? I've got no idea. Did Chase Edmonds?
Sure.
No, they don't have Chase Edmonds anymore. But
who'd they get from Houston who'd they give to Houston?
Well, they gave David Johnson away.
Right? Yeah, David Johnson. That's right.
Yeah. But I mean, frankly, It was not the David Johnson we remember from his rookie year, right? So,
Right.
like say Arizona's like, yeah, if the top of the third round, these 4 running backs are gone, we'll do it. You can't leak that they've got
James
a
Conner.
memorandum of understanding with the Arizona Cardinals, because then people will try to trade ahead of the Cardinals, and the Cardinals don't want that. They want the running back that they want in the draft. Dalvin Cook's a backup plan.
Dalvin did win some kind of deep sea fishing competition over the weekend, though.
Oh, I saw something about
and
that.
his shoulder
I saw,
looked
Dalvin
great.
Cook and fishing, and I was like,
he was popping the champagne
him.
bottle. He was spraying the champagne. Shoulder looked great, guys.
Hey, Zach Hiller said the same thing. One of the reasons that Cook has not been able to produce as much as you might expect is that, and this happens to every player, you make sure to point this out, is that because the shoulder injuries, subconsciously, you always kind of find ways to enter contact in a way to kind of protect you. And now he doesn't have to worry about that, Hiller said in this podcast.
Right. Yeah. He held on to the champagne bottle too. Fumble issues are cured.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
How much does it put on? Is it is it his reel-in shoulder? Or is it which shoulder
is that
takes
thing?
the most?
That's actually a great question, because I went deep sea fishing a year ago. I went deep sea fishing in a very similar, based on his story on Instagram, looked very similar to the kind of stuff I was doing. Trying to reel in a 250-pound fish is extremely taxing.
You don't say.
So if he had to reel that, that would be a real stress test.
Did you successfully reel in a 250-pound fish, Sam?
Well, okay. Are we going down? We're going down this road. We're going down the fishing road.
Is there a complicated answer to that question?
Right.
There
is.
With
this,
all right.
this road.
Story time. Okay, story time. This is
what happened to the fish?
At the 32-minute mark of the show. I think this is a great time to tell you about the time that I went deep sea fishing.
It's deep off season. Let's go. Deep sea fishing in the deep off season.
Yeah.
All right. I vow this will take no more than 2.5 minutes. Deep sea fishing off the coast of the Big Island in Hawaii with Captain Jeff Rogers. Captain Jeff Rogers is a grizzly old son of a gun who had a hard career. I think he served. He was in the in the military. He did underwater engineering. This guy's seen some stuff, and now he's just he's got a charter boat and he's taking people fishing. So it's my turn. I'm in a group. It's my turn to reel in the next fish. We got one rigged up, going for legitimate sharks. We've got a gigantic rig going for big fish. We get a bite. Okay, we got a hit. So I'm in the chair. Jeff Rogers is screaming instructions at me, swearing at me, MFing me up and down, telling me how
a little bit of that in your life.
Imagine
he's like an O-line coach.
Imagine the worst trainer at the gym telling you to let's go, Braun, get that bar up, come on. This was me trying to reel in the fish.
That. Did you not hear my original my open to this show?
You don't work. So
Braun can't even conceive of the analogy you've just built.
So after a good 20-minute battle, we get it's an oceanic blacktip shark, 250 pounds estimated. Get him to the edge of the boat. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
You didn't get the fish.
So no, we get the fish to the edge of the boat. It's photographed. Right. It's videoed. Jeff Rogers is,
oh my God,
trying to pull, he's not allowed to bring the shark onto the boat.
Legally
he can't do that
or something, Luke.
Yeah, I Google imaged it. Damn.
And he pulls the line out of the water, so we can get a better photo. The shark thrashes around, cuts the line, and swims away as he was lifting it out of the water. Now,
beautiful. So I can see why you hesitated to answer off the bat. Because you were not allowed to reel it in. Shark cutting away was part of an attempt not to bring the shark in, but to hold him in. So that's totally different. I get why you hesitated.
Luke Inman authors the NFL Draft Buzz newsletter. Subscribe at lockedonpodcast.com/newsletters. Get all the latest draft updates, top 5 lists, and links to other Locked On Draft content. So at FanDuel, if you guys don't have the link, I'll put it in the chat.
Wait,
FanDuel,
Sam,
they have
I,
what?
I spent like 20 minutes coming up with a hot take, but it's a fast one because we've already talked about it
we
a
got
lot.
way off track. Yeah.
Oh
Luke
my
Braun.
gosh. Yeah, Luke, what's
Unpopular
your draft
draft
hot take?
Okay. So we talked about it a lot already on this show, so I won't rehash it. But I would take Dorian Thompson-Robinson before I took Hendon Hooker. I think that's way off by consensus.
That is way up. Like DTR is like
It's like
the
scorching.
200s. Yeah, DTR's in the 200s. Hendon is
Well,
low.
are you weighting it
at
for
the
round?
60s.
Like you're saying you'd rather have DTR in the
No,
fourth
both
than
were on.
Hendon
If
in the
both
first?
were on the board, I would. Third
But
or
yeah,
fourth.
yeah, this isn't
But,
like why would you take Hendon Hooker the third round when you could take DTR in the
No,
fifth round? This
if-
is like
If
I'm
you're
at the
up at
third round
87 and you
faced
want
with
a
the prospect
quarterback,
yeah,
yeah, I'm taking DTR over Hendon Hooker. Yeah.
aren't they both?
Look, they're
old?
both destined to
Isn't
be
DTR
NFL
old?
backups. I'm going to take the dude that can run around.
DTR's 23.
Oh, DTR's
What do you-
that's not
what do
the
you like
same
about him?
realm of old then.
Yeah.
That's old.
Yeah.
It's not the same realm of old.
Both 5-year guys,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but Hendon Hooker is 5 years.
I-
Like, he's
and-
like what 25?
Yeah, and I see like okay, yeah, they're both 5-year starters, so they still have that same
Yeah,
kind of idea of like why aren't
the
you
difference
better
for
at
me
this?
and the reason I get your reasoning for this. The difference for me is that Hooker has progressed over the course of his 5 years in college. DTR has not, at least when it comes to reading defenses, all that kind of stuff, right? I think that's pretty critical.
Man,
and then
I don't like how
also
he reads defenses. I didn't watch anything from like too many previous years, but I like how it's a weird offense. It's like post snap, you're reading a safety.
It is a very weird offense. But I mean, they're both weird offenses, right? You kind of have to figure out kind of how the quarterbacking works within those offenses.
Yeah, and both sides post snap are viable in the Chip Kelly one, but on the Tennessee one, it is determined pre snap, which I think is a little bit easier to execute.
I think the Virginia Tech stuff speaks to Hooker pretty well though too. So at least in that regard. So I'd say that,
Where
and then also
benched.
I would, yeah, that guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't pretend UCLA wasn't trying to recruit quarterbacks to get rid of DTR. He would have gotten benched, man. But yeah, I just think that Hooker's capacity for doing quarterback things is higher. I think DTR is a much more exciting player to watch. That is a hot take, man. I need some of those.
And I see both of them as backups here. I think both these guys are destined.
No,
to be
I
backup
understand. You're projecting a backup role, not an eventual starter role, which is a different, I think, set of roles.
Right. So it's
but
I'm taking. I think it was on your show, Reef. Somebody comped him to like Tyler Huntley. Yeah. I'm excited about it. Tyler Huntley
Wait, you
backup
listen
idea.
to my show?
And I think I would spend a third round pick on
that favor.
Please don't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sam, I think wants us to move along, but man, I wish I had to take that hot. I don't know. Bryce Ford Wheaton in the second round if they had a second round pick. There you go. He's like a 6th round receiver.
Oh,
You
Sam,
love him?
play the noise.
Like him a lot.
Play the breaking
how
news.
You know how that makes me smile.
This is
Here we go.
For the Star Tribune's Ben Gessling, the Vikings are adding a cornerback to their roster. They've agreed to terms with former Patriots corner Jojuan Williams, according to us.
I think it's just Joan.
Jojuan Williams?
Silent J.
Yeah.
I mean, could
They've now
I
got
have
6
been more
corners.
could I have been more vindicated within the course of this episode than I am right now?
Yeah, you could have been more vindicated. Yeah, they could have signed a better corner.
I have
All right,
no idea.
let's-
Tell me
let's
anything about
do-
him. I don't know. I've never.
He's fine. He's
thought
like
about this
he's
guy.
better than
Okay,
than the other
on
two.
air. I love on air research more than anything in the world. All right, so Jojuan Williams.
This show with pacing and flow.
Jojuan
Now that
Williams.
will be disrupted.
Joan Williams got beat up by all
Jojuan.
3 Joneses at cornerback on the Patriots roster. He's not the world's best. All 3 Joneses.
Does he make a team? Is he like a definitely going to make a team be a depth guy? Because we need that. Or is,
I think he could get beat out by a draft pick, but certainly I think that he's much better than than Tay Gowan and Kalen Barnes. Again,
Okay,
Barnes and
wait.
Gowan,
He didn't. So he didn't play last year. Why didn't he play last year? Hurt the whole year? Looks like he didn't play at all.
Do you want to do like a NBC Sports Edge Joe Juan Williams? I'll tell you everything.
Yeah, suffers season-ending injury in August. So he didn't lose his job. He was hurt. So we've already debunked Arif.
100% was losing his job in the depth on the depth chart. It was Malcolm Butler who lost his job due to injury. Joanne Williams was going to lose his job to Jack Jones.
Okay, so in 3 years, he played 506 snaps, no more than 254 snaps in a year. He was basically a rotational or depth corner for New England. 25 years old, former second-round pick. This feels like high upside. I'm guessing it's a super low contract, but based on the outlook, he probably makes the team.
Yeah, again, I think he could get beat out by draft picks. If the Vikings draft a player in round 1 and round 4, I could see Joanne Williams losing his spot. But I think it's a good ad. Interestingly,
boundary corner.
Yeah, interestingly, he doesn't meet the kind of the Kwesi 10 split thing, right? He ran a 1.64 second 10 split, 4.60 40-yard dash, but his agilities are out of this world. So for a lengthy guy, so he's 6'4", 32.5-inch arms, incredible length, right? Which can help make up for speed. For a length guy, he ran a 6.923 cone on a 4.07. 4.07 short shuttle. That's crazy. It's one of the fastest short shuttles for a 6'2" guy ever. And he's 6'4". So
is he true 6'4"? Like legit measured 6'4"?
He measured 6'3" and 5/8 inches at the combine.
Whoa.
Yeah, not like he's 6'2" and they list him at 6'4". He's like closer to 6'4" than he is 6'3". With 32.5-inch arms.
Had a huge game against the Jets last year. Had a passer rating against of 130, which is a little high.
A little. Yeah.
But no, again, I mean, so last year played, and it looks like he missed some time as well, played about 20 to 30 snaps a game in, I assume, a rotational role for Belichick. I like it. And sorry, this wasn't last year. This is 2 years ago. Coming off an injury, high upside, probably very, very low commitment. This is fine. I still feel vindicated. And I don't think they're done. Yet. I think they've got more work to do.
They literally can't be unless they intend to draft like 5 cornerbacks.
And it's not to say that you can't still find a contributor in round 4, Caleb Evans. You know, like I think that this is such a good cornerback class that you might be able to find someone early in day 3 that could be like at least your CB4, CB5. We've got, I shouldn't have told the fishing story because now we're behind. I've got that's fine. Unlike Danielle, I'm showing up to voluntary workouts today. So I got to go. I got to get to that. In closing, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to hold a couple of these draft-related activities for Inman when he comes back, because I know Inman would love the FanDuel draft props.
Yes.
We're going to spend some money on FanDuel. Definitely. Let me hit you with a would you rather, though, in closing. So would you rather get a quarterback? You get the quarterback you want. It's not Stroud, it's not Young, but you get the quarterback otherwise that you prefer. But that's
okay, I get Richardson. Great.
That's all you add. That's all you add in this draft.
Nobody else in the draft.
Or you don't get a quarterback, you make your picks, you have a normal draft, and you probably add a couple pieces that can play this year. Which route are you going?
Quarterback.
Yeah, I think I slammed the quarterback.
Yeah.
If I get to have it be
so Luke
Anthony
takes
Richardson.
DTR he takes DTR in the first round.
Yeah.
No!
At the 8th overall pick. Yeah. So would I rather have like Anthony Richardson or like my ideal 95th percentile draft, which has like Deontay Banks and I guess Bryce Ford Weatherspoon now that I've put that take out there. And like some of the offensive linemen I like, and the linebackers I like, and stuff like that. But like I get Deontay Banks in the first round. I get the receiver I like in the 3rd or 4th round. I get the guard that I like. I get the edge rusher that I like, that kind of thing. Right. Yeah, I take the quarterback. The impact on wins is tremendous. And you get to know earlier whether or not you need to draft a quarterback. I think that is value too, right? Like so you move on from Kirk Cousins in 2024, your guy, in this case, Anthony Richardson for me, plays 2024, doesn't do well, 2025 doesn't do well. You can move on because you've had 3 years of him, right? 2 years playing, but 3 years of him in the building, right? You can move on and draft a quarterback in 2026. If you don't, you end up in 2024 with a team that does not have a lot of draft capital to move up for a quarterback, right? And so you might not be able to draft a quarterback until 2025, right? And then you move on in 2028, 2029. Yeah. Take answer.
Yeah. If Hendon Hooker, let's take the Vikings out of it. Do you think that Inman and I will ultimately be validated if Hendon Hooker goes in the 1st round to somebody? Like, do you think is this all smoke around Hendon, or do you think he goes in the 1st round?
I think it's smoke that's coming from the Vikings. I think the Vikings are the team.
They are.
I think they're going, look, guys,
they
love Hendon Hooker. We definitely won't trade up. All right. You don't need to worry about it, Tampa. Washington, no, don't worry about us. We'll take Hendon Hooker. It's fine. I think the call is coming. The psyop is coming from inside the house.
And from FanDuel, by the way, and I'm actually just seeing this. Quentin Johnston is favored to go to the Vikings. But also,
FanDuel?
There's like 3 players that are favored to go to the Vikings.
But so is Hendon Hooker.
Nobody knows
Hendon
Hooker. I only saw Hendon Hooker was favored. All right.
Hooker, and it's tied. He's tied with
draft
the Seahawks
props are so broken, man.
Yeah.
There's it's actually a pretty fun selection right now at FanDuel. Check it out. They've really beefed up their possible draft props. You can go first player at like each position, which team takes which player, which position the teams take. It's good stuff.
So Tanner McKee was a top 30 visit, but as far as I can tell, Hendon Hooker was not? Question mark?
Yeah, and I don't think that matters a ton because sometimes that in itself is a smokescreen.
Yeah,
to bring someone in for a top 30.
No. Yeah, I mean, the Vikings never talked to Eric Hendricks or Harrison Smith before they drafted him. I get it. But
yeah. Different front office, though. Different.
They won't talk to somebody like Will Levis because they don't have to. Because like O'Connell already knows everything he needs.
I think
they
already did too. At the combine.
Oh,
all right. I love the breaking news. Juwan Williams is a Viking. I'm going to voluntary OTAs, despite my contract situation. I'm going to show up. That's Arif. That's Luke. Tomorrow.
Get that snowy 40 time down. I love it.
Perfect.
That's great. That's a good bit. Luke Braun, Arif Hasan, thank you very much. Tomorrow, Luke Inman joins for the draft edition of the show on the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. So long.